if you look at that position through May, we have utilized $64,000 more than we brought in, and again, that is just purely timing. But we still end the we still end the period through May with $93,000 of positive cash, and that I believe is everything I have on my agenda. Are there? Oh, yes. Regarding these financials, are there any questions regarding any of the financial information in front of you, even January through May? Even though we did January last meeting.
Anybody have any questions for Andre and the financial reports?
Move to approve.
All right, thank you. I'm not sure who was that. Oh, Steve Wheeler moved to approve. Is there a second?
Got a question on this.
Dave Marcelli, I think, seconded that one. So all those in favor of approving the financial reports as submitted, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, they are approved. All right. So those, Andre, do you have anything for the year-to-date report? That's essentially everything you went through there. How about the audit? Any words of wisdom on the audit?
So, I sent out the agreed upon procedures report. It was officially issued by the Auditor State's office, and everything was in order with the agreed upon procedures. There was no discrepancies in other testing.
Okay. All right.
And I did send that out
to everybody.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions, or everybody receive that report? Anybody not receive it? Okay. Good deal.
And Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
This is Rhodey.
There you are.
Yeah, one of the things that was added in, I think, our last month's activities report was the public records portion of our agreed upon procedures. That was a section that I had not had the opportunity to take part of previously, and working with Rhea and Associates on understanding a little bit better about the compliance and what's required through the audit has definitely fortified some of our public records processes here. So I was glad that we came through it, meeting all of their qualifications and learning a few things that we can do to continue to improve for the future.
Okay.
Way to go.
Great. Thank you, Rhodey. Appreciate that. All right. FEMA line item for the budget. Is that your world there, Andre, or are we passing that on to Rhodey on stuff?
I think that's our dubs.
Yeah, this is something that working through the FEMA grant process for recovery and sharing of funds for our expenditures during the surge period as it was anticipated for COVID-19. There were a number of different qualifying factors we had to meet. Some of those were just being in line with the business world. We had to get a Dun & Bradstreet number certified and registered. We had to have a vendor's permit through the state of Ohio portal to be able to facilitate that. And then finally, one thing that we'll have to add that I thought was of note, because you will see this in recurring budgets in the future then, is we need to add a budget line item for FEMA to show receipts of grant monies as well as disbursements. So I just put that on as an item agenda so that you knew we will be modifying our budget to accommodate any reimbursements from FEMA in the future, and that'll be part of this moving forward.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rhodey. Any questions of Rhodey on the FEMA possible reimbursements, which we are crossing our fingers and hoping? All right, thank you. How about workman's comp refund? Essentially about the same with any type of refund from FEMA?
Yeah, the interesting thing with the workers' comp was that the attached letter through the Bureau of Workers' Compensation was basically saying that this refund was part of the COVID-19 relief package. So we did see almost $6,000 come back to our agency that we were not planning on. So that was a nice little bump for us. When I discussed this with Andre, that was going back into our reserve fund for our continuing operations. So it was nice to see almost $6,000 come back from the state of Ohio for that, and combined with any additional monies that we may receive through FEMA will more than offset the costs that we have incurred so far as operational costs for COVID-19.
Okay, good deal. All right. Well, Rhodey, since you're up, why don't you just dive into an operations report and sort of fill us in what's been happening with you guys through all of this COVID stuff happening.
Okay, well, it has been a roller coaster year for all of us. I'm sure that we can all agree upon that. And the dispatch center serving all of our communities has not been abstaining from that. I've been trying to send out operational activity reports every month. This is something that I had originally discussed with my direct report, which is Joel Montgomery, and then was passed on to our executive committee. And when we saw that we would not have the value of being able to meet in person with regularity, we chose to start sharing those with the entire executive board. So my goal in that is to make sure that each one of you sees the work that's moving forward on behalf of our communities, and you feel that you have an investment in the process, because this is your dispatch center, and I want you to have ownership over that and to be knowledgeable and educated in our daily processes and why it brings value to your communities having this relationship. I've sent out 5 previous activity summaries just to run over some highlights. Just this year, some of the major accomplishments that we've been able to move through were we were able to get our supervisors promoted and put in place and operational. So these are our shift supervisors who provide a little more administrative oversight and ensure compliance and accuracy for our duty personnel for first, second, and third shift. We've developed a training standard and adopted that as an organization that sets us apart from many other dispatch centers, in that we are adhering to international standards and reaching for credentialing and accreditation on a personal level where we can, and working that into a 3 to 5 year plan to help fund that for our agency. Along with that, we would be remiss if we didn't start looking at mentoring and succession planning. So I started to sit down and outline a mentoring and succession plan so that we can begin to enrich the knowledge of those who already work here, and hopefully put them in a position where they better understand holistically how we operate and integrate with other agencies, as well as to prepare so that someday when the torch needs to be passed, someone's ready to do that. We took a good hard look at our policies and SOPs that we've had in place and have revised those. We've ended up creating or revising 25 different policies to provide guidance and set expectations for our staff so that we can meet the expectations of our public safety agencies that we serve. So I think that's been instrumental in helping provide some direction for our staff members. Nobody likes to just function in a void. It's nice to have direction and a goal and something to move towards. And I think some of the policies and the standard operating procedures we put in place facilitate that. Interagency training is something that I pursued fairly fervently early on as well, working with both Wayne and Ashland counties with their respective prosecutors' offices to help them with public records requests and ascertaining recordings for their use for prosecutorial use. So I was able to get out and meet with the different agencies one-on-one, face-to-face, train them in how to utilize our recorder software so that they can more expediently pull their own records, thereby making their processes a little bit faster and reducing some of the strain on this office as far as fulfilling public records requests for our partner agencies. Along the same line, one of the things that we want to look at too was how can we reduce our call volume for areas where we're not specifically a focus priority. I met with the Wayne County Adult Probation Services, and it was the mutual agreement that they would be best served by returning their radio traffic back to Wayne County Dispatch because they work more closely with the county agencies while still maintaining some quick access to our city officers if necessary. So we reduced our call volume with our county prosecutor, or excuse me, our county probation officers by working with them closely and facilitating that. In addition, the city of Orrville was very gracious in working with us and helping redirect emergency phone calls during power outages. Previously, the WARCOG had brought with it from the city of Orrville a notification number that anytime there was a power outage, people could call in to let us know that, hey, the power's out in our home. Unfortunately, that created an undue burden on the dispatchers because at the time of an environmental emergency, when we have other, rescues and public safety needs going on, we also had to answer phone calls from people saying my power's out. So the city of Orrville worked with us. They have contracted and put in place a answering service that helps facilitate and take those calls now. So the last storm was our first good storm where we tested that. There were some bumps in the process that we were able to work out collaboratively, but it looks like it's going to be a great benefit in reducing our overall call numbers and allowing us to focus on people who have a true emergent need. We've been busy in that we got our annual health insurance reviewed and renewed. That was a big step. A couple projects that have been on the plate for a while that just needed tied up and taken to the finish line were our CAD cloud transition. So moving all of our computer-aided dispatch from our dedicated server within our facility to the cloud, which allows us to access it remotely when necessary, as well as gives us greater frequency of updates. So that has had its successes. We've learned to deal with some of the caveats of making that move because we now share data space with roughly 45 other agencies. So some new developments have been made to help speed up our CAD system for us. So Sundance has been very responsive to our needs, and we appreciate that. Pulse Point integration. This was a CPR-focused program for the city of Ashland. We've got that integrated into our system, and it is successfully sending data back to the third-party agency. Unfortunately, just as we got that done, COVID-19 hit. So the possibility of having large group instruction and community education in the city of Ashland to help initiate this program was deterred. So we're looking forward to some alternate methods of how to roll that out to the community and see that being a very valuable tool in the future. We're also taking a look at, now that it's integrated into our CAD system, can we also utilize that in the cities of Orrville, Worcester, and Kidron as well? And so once they're to the point where they have Ashland up and rolling, I've been working with the EMS liaison through Worcester Community Hospital to see about integrating that for our other communities. Tango Tango is a push-to-talk program that has existed for a while in a demonstration purpose within our agency. It allows our officers to utilize a piggyback on the MARCS system so they can use their cell phones as a radio when necessary. The majority of the value has been derived from our officers, specifically our administrative officers, because it allows them to have radio access without having to carry a portable with them all the time. We have existed in a demo phase for quite some time, and the operations board decided that it's finally time to sign a contract with Tango Tango. So at this time, we currently have the city of Orrville, their entire police department, and the administrative officers for the city of Worcester operating on that system. We have passed out a quote to the city of Ashland's fire division for them to consider, but for a single agency who operates on a separate frequency, it is somewhat cost prohibitive. So Chief Anderson is discussing that with his ACs and other officers to determine the value of that. Speaking of radios, one of the things that we wanted to do was, once I got in and started working with our independent agencies, I wanted to make sure all of our radio IDs are updated. And so for those of you who aren't familiar, every officer, fire or police who has a portable radio when they press the button to speak to us, a number and a name shows up on one of our computer screens that tells us who is actually holding that radio or who that radio belongs to. That's a very important safety aspect for our officers because it also links in their emergency alert button. So if they have a crisis and can't talk and they could press that button, we know who's in trouble, and then we can start to determine where are they at and what resources we can send. So that's an important thing to keep updated. I met with or spoke to every one of our agencies, and we did radio inventories. We saw who they were assigned to, what their radio ID numbers were, and then updated our systems to ensure that everything was current. So that was a project that was very important to me from a public safety standpoint, officer safety standpoint. Another big project that we completed was the state of Ohio warrant updates. That took a number of weeks for us to go through every single warrant that we hold here in the center and get it updated with the new pickup radiuses and other guidelines. That was an effort that every single dispatcher kicked in on both day and night and worked through that diligently. And it was nice to know that we were one of the first agencies to have that completed in full. If you've ever been up here and you remember walking through the kind of shared space, we have a number of filing cabinets that are just packed full of warrants. And it was not a small task to work through that and get that done. So the dispatchers deserve a lot of credit for their effort for that. On the fire side, we updated all of the mutual aid box alarm systems. So when fire departments need help from other agencies for specific types of calls, we have a guideline for each one of those agencies, as well as the area that they're operating in for what type of additional resources they may require when they ask for it. So we also got all of our MABUS boxes updated this spring. From a hardware standpoint, we did see an update in our ANI alleys, which is the automatic number identification and location identification. It's part of our next 911, our next gen 911 system. And so when someone calls in on either a hardline or a wireless device, it'll give us the number they're calling from and the closest approximate location as possible. Specifically important for the number of people who have cell phones nowadays. So it starts off with a general location as far as the nearest tower, and then we can define it further from there. So that got integrated into our E911 information within our CAD system this spring as well. That was subsequent to our cloud transition. As spring came on, we also saw our warning siren systems review. That was a big undertaking, kind of determining the mixture of different systems we have and what it's going to take to keep them operating and functional, and defining who is responsible for the hardware maintenance and improvements on those different areas. So we worked with the city of Orrville, working with the city of Worcester, and the ancillary smaller villages that are attached to the American signal system, Marshallville, Smithville, Bachman Township, to get all of those communicating well and ensuring that they are operating as necessary for our public alert systems. We also saw GIS updates get started this spring. So this is taking the GIS information from each of your municipalities and incorporating it into our mapping systems within our CAD. We did Ashland first, so now we're able to visualize the actual response boundaries of the city of Ashland. And when we have a call come in, the ANI alley information is then supplanted on top of the map, and we can see what jurisdiction it's in, what area of the city, and we can assign the appropriate units. So it's another enhanced feature that makes our job a little more effective and more efficient. The city of Ashland is done. The city of Worcester's GIS shapefiles have been passed, and once those are updated, then we will complete the balance of the county, which would be Orrville and Kidron, and any of the automatic aid areas that are associated with that. And then finally, as far as training goes, we've been continuing with our monthly training. This month and last month were our international recertifications. So our International Academy of Emergency Dispatch for fire, police, and medical dispatch. All of our dispatchers who are certified in that have gone through the recertification process to get those done. So that was those months, and we are also continuing with our monthly training. We've done school shootings or terrorist attacks. We've looked at a couple modules that have been through the program office, trying to do what we can remotely, even though our in-person opportunities have been diminished. And I think that catches us all up for the first 5 months. So I'm going to take a deep breath, you guys as well. And do you have any questions about the first 5 months of the year and kind of the operation update that we just talked about?
Well, thank you, Rody. That was a great update. And really, are there any questions out there that people want to ask? If not, I have a couple I was going to ask about. I'll jump in then. Rody, I remember really the last time we all got together, we were talking about Sundance and its upgrade to the cloud. Is that all completed at this point and everything went smoothly and Sundance is up and running 100% for us?
That is correct. It is completed. Everything did not go smoothly. We had some bumps in the road, mostly around coordinating all of our different IT departments to get the individual MDTs in the officers' cars updated concurrently. So that took a little more time than anticipated, but it did get done. We have been operating from the cloud since that time. As I noted, we made some requests to Dennis and the Sundance team for some speed enhancements that help us do our job a little bit better, and they have accommodated those. So all in all, it has been a very positive effort.
All right, great. Thank you. The other thing that I was reading is the PSAP compliance. This process is tied to future funding, grant qualifications, and all of those things. So it sounds like a pretty big deal for us. What's the status and plan on that?
All right, that is part of our June update, but we'll just jump into it. Every single year, the state of Ohio asks us to show that we are compliant with their requirements for our PSAPs or our public safety answering points. What's involved in that is documenting our call volumes, our call answer times, and our training to ensure that we're meeting the standards that are required. So as part of our executive board meeting, we always talk about numbers. This particular month, I have our numbers down for us, and what they want to look at is the total number of calls that we process. Of those total number of calls, how many 911 calls are answered within 10 seconds? How many 911 calls are answered within 20 seconds? So that reflects back on a number of things. It comes back to our infrastructure, how well we have designed our system to take incoming calls. It has to do with our minimum staffing to ensure that we have the appropriate number of people to handle the call volume that's coming in. And then finally, that the people that we do have working the councils have the appropriate training through emergency medical dispatch to meet that. So that's how all of our PSAP compliance wraps up together. And this is an annual process that begin compiling it in June, and it's submitted early July. At the December board meeting, I presented a letter that showed our compliance results for 2018, showing that we met everything. So I would anticipate towards the end of the year as well that we will see another letter showing our compliance results for 2019, and this will be for 2020. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you. One last question from my camp. How are we doing with Pro QA compliance and testing and all of that? Are we still getting good results out of that and information that helps us get better?
Yeah, absolutely. Pro QA is something that's very important to the operations board as far as ensuring that adequate information, accurate information is being collected and then passed on. One of the things that we have found a challenge while we went through the COVID-19 period and the requisite questions to help ensure our public officers' safety was that all of that continued to add to the call processing time. which was frustrating for us because we ideally try to take a call from the time of answer to dispatch in less than 90 seconds. We want to ensure that our time is condensed so that our officers have the greatest probability of responding in an expedient manner and meeting their standards as well that are set from their national organizations. So ProQA has continued to do well for us. There are times that we had to modify its use during COVID-19. And when I say modify, I don't mean diminish, but I mean we had to add to. So as the CDC would put out the additional questions to ask for, have you been in touch or in contact with anyone with positive COVID-19? Do you experience respiratory illness, injury, difficulty breathing, any GI issues, diarrhea, elevated temperature above 101? All of those got programmed and entered into ProQA so that that tool expanded for us and became more comprehensive. So the challenge for me was getting those tools all to work together and then getting the dispatchers used to it. But they quickly adapted and moved through well. So our ProQA use, our goal was to have it continue to elevate each month, and it has done so.
Great. Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that information. Anybody else have questions for Rhodey on how operations are going?
Great report. Really good information. I guess the question would be, where were you the first 2 years we started this?
I was on the receiving end of this particular organization, so.
He was in a lazy boy mayor with his feet up. We actually needed Barry those first 2 years, Mayor Handwork, because we needed someone that was up to the task of working all the kinks out so it would be ready for Rhodey to take over.
Well, there you go. Yep.
I think he's being nice to you, Barry. He's trying to get back in good graces there.
I appreciate that.
What he thinks of me, but I just wanted to tell the truth.
Thanks.
All right, team. Well, with that, unless there are any final questions, and we'll have more time after, but it looks like we're going to have to go into an executive session. We are on live for the public since it's a public meeting. So with that, John, do you want to pull us off? Well, I guess
we should do a roll for executive session. Do we do that while we're live, or do we?
We do that while we're live.
Okay.
Yes,
So
and we really need
a motion to move then.
Yep. Thank you. Is there a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters?
Move.
Okay, I hear Mayor Mayor Miller saying that he moved to go in, and is there a second on that?
I'll second that.
All right, Mayor Handwork second. So a roll call vote. Lynn, would you please call the vote on this?
Sure. Brenneman,
Yes.
Matt Miller,
Yes.
Handwork,
Yes.
Montgomery,
Yes.
Dennis Miller,
Yes.
Steve Wheeler, Anderson,
Yes.
Saley,
Yes.
Birkbeck,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
and Marcelli.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. And for anyone watching on YouTube, we are going into executive session. As soon as the executive session is done, we will return online to, I'm assuming at that point, adjourn the meeting. So we will be back after the executive session.